Hi, thanks for being a part of my channel where I talk about typography, graphic design, and productivity. I am Sky Blue Jenny. I am a working designer and educator. Today, I'll be sharing how to utilize the different fonts available on Instagram to make your intended message and how to use them to maximize visibility to your audience. These are all the fonts that I have available to me on Instagram in 2020, so don't worry if what you are finding looks slightly different for your interface. Typographic principles will stay the same regardless of all the advances and changes we have moving forward.
Tiny disclaimer, these are all my personal suggestions on how to improve your typefaces for an audience, but don't let any of them be a blocker from sharing your message with others.
First, let's jump into where you can write your message using Instagram. IG pros, feel free to jump to the next section. But if you've never done it before, it's really easy. You're gonna open up Instagram, and from your homepage, you're going to swipe to the right so you can show the stories. And you have a few options here. You can either, you can either create, so you're gonna tap the AA on the left side, hello, and you're going to type whatever your message is. You can also go back to the original, and you can either take a picture and you tap on the AA at the top right hand corner, and that's how you access adding your message. You can also, from the main story page, you can start by tapping the bottom left corner and select an image you want to add text to, and you select the image, you upload it there, and you find the AA at the top, and you can add your image. In all of these instances, after you write the name or the text, the ability to change a font appears right below it. So I'm going to take you through all 9 of these different fonts and how I like to use them. So at the time of creating this video, I had access to 9 different styles of Instagram fonts, and I find that they are the easiest to describe by just using 5 different parameters: stroke endings, weight, width, contrast, and construction. So I'm just gonna go through all 9 of them. What I love about this first bold sans is, bold sans, it has a bold weight and it doesn't have any stroke ending, so that makes it a sans serif. And it's one of my favorites because of the weight that makes it visible at small sizes. So once you select it, you can make it small or very large, and you can still kind of see it. It's really great for reading at small sizes. It's great for everything. You can use it everywhere. So the next one is a sans. Also, no stroke endings. It has an uppercase construction or capital letters, and it has a narrow width. And having a narrow width to the letters, this uppercase features a more stylized form because it's so narrow that the tail of the Q, maybe we could zoom in, is too narrow for there to be room in the counter for the tail of the Q. And also, like the stroke of the G, the ending stroke of the G, it doesn't enter the counter either. And I love how this particular one tends to have a J with a horizontal bar that kind of just fills in the negative space of the J. It's also great for everything. It also just makes all of your letters capitalized, but great for everything. So the next one is the script. This is the only script typeface on Instagram available right now. This style in particular actually looks a little like the cursive handwriting we had to learn, and it isn't very elegant if your message is trying to evoke elegance and refinement. With no contrast in the stroke, the XI is about half the size of the cap height, and each of the letter forms are slightly square versus condensed or narrow. This makes the typeface more on the childish side, and I tend to not choose it because my calligraphy is based off of the traditional copperplate hand. If you want to study the proportions of the copperplate hand, you can download my free calligraphy worksheet. You can find the link below. That's just why I don't tend to choose this typeface. It's just a little bit on the childish side. There's no contrast in any of the forms. I'm sure it might grow on me. The more I'm looking at it, the more I'm starting to like it a lot. So this next one is a fixed width or a monospace font where the width of all of the letters are the same. And this allows them to align with each other. You can see the T is very lined up with the J, U, the M, P fits in the space. Everything's lined up perfectly. These are often used in actual typewriters where the metal items that are used to press into the paper, they're connected to where you're typing with the fingers. And so those are all set in the same width. All of those little metal pieces are the same, and that's where the monospace styling comes from. This only differs from coding or monospace fonts, where this one actually features serifs. So these are a serif typeface, so it's more of a typewriter. This typeface is great if you'd want to add an appearance that looks nostalgic or vintage. The taller X height and the wide width on the letters makes this one of the most legible fonts out of the serif fonts that are available on Instagram right now. It's looking like a pretty good size. You can see everything at a smaller size when I squeeze out, and this is one of the more legible serifs. All right, so this next one. This is a bold sans, and it is a normal width, and it has a bold weight, and it is displayed at a slightly forward slant. Let's take a closer look at that. So it has a slightly forward slant. I wouldn't call it an italic because it uses a double story A in the slant. And italics normally use a single story A. The double story A is a construction of a Roman typeface, but this one definitely has a lean. So I would say that because it's bold and it has a forward lean, I think it portrays action or strength. It is the boldest of the typefaces available, making it great for industries like fitness or gyms. And this also looks pretty good at a smaller size. I would use this sparingly because of how thick the weight is. It makes the counters disappear the smaller it gets. Try to use that very sparingly. I wouldn't advise to use it in things like paragraphs or text, but it's a great font. So if you like to use it, then go for it. All right, this next one is irregular sans. And this typeface is often described as Comic Sans since it bears rounded stroke endings and regular with characters with some irregular slants and inconsistent letter spacing. So looking at the spacing on them, it's different from the true Comic Sans, which features absolutely no straight lines in any of its strokes. This one, the one on Instagram, however, features mostly straight strokes and with the often occurring vowels like the E or the O or the U. Those are a little not straight. The U tends to lean back, the O leans forward, the E is slightly above. Like it's a slightly higher E. Since they're vowels that happen a lot in a word or in a phrase, it adds to the wonkiness and it makes it look strange. Some people like to associate Comic Sans with amateur graphic designers as it is widely panned and criticized for its irregularity. But despite all of the hate that the font can get, the real Comic Sans is recommended by both the British Dyslexia Association and the Dyslexia Association of Ireland. Some people say that it might be the best widely available font for dyslexics as its irregular appearance makes it easier to isolate different parts of a letter. In the normal Comic Sans, that irregularity tends to be a positive point because dyslexics, in theory, can take the time to look at these fonts individually. Depending on your perspective, you can either use this sans in both sarcasm or in the intention to make your message more accessible to an audience. Moving on, a light serif with a slant. This serif bears an italic construction. This one has the lowercase a, and the high contrast between its vertical strokes and its horizontal strokes make it a great connection to the fashion or beauty industries. Where this typeface tends to fail is in its legibility. So looking at it as large, that's where it is normally intended. That's because this is a display typeface. And with the high contrast, their normal usage is intended for big covers of magazines or on signs. And when you bring something with such a high amount of contrast, especially with serifs, down to a text size, you tend to lose a little bit of the detail. And bringing it down to a text size brings the horizontal strokes almost to invisible, especially for people where nearsighted reading can be a little difficult. So using this well should be limited down to a few words so you can maximize its size on the screen and highlight all of that beautiful high contrast stroke. This next one is a sans uppercase construction. It is of a condensed width, so it's slightly narrower than regular. It's another uppercase sans. We had another one earlier, but this one is slightly different. It is slightly wider than the original one, and it's lighter in weight than the previous one. The counters here are larger. The Q tail goes into the counter. You have the G kind of coming in. And these letters are a little bit more of a traditional construction because of that Q. Very good basic uppercase sans. All right, and this last one, is the serif. Has some contrast, a regular weight, and a regular width. And I love this one because of its slight contrast, making it appear well structured and very consistent with each other with all of the different strokes. It might be slightly too light for traditional text face, but it's the best one on Instagram right now. And the open counters and the open forms are great for a full sentence or even a paragraph if you like to write a lot and take pictures of those on Instagram. So those are really great. I think this is one of my favorite typefaces. A lot of people tend to use this in a modern sense with like very few words. This is one of my favorite new updates to Instagram. See how it looks in small sizes? It's looking great. It's beautiful. A regular sans that does everything that you need it to. If these are new ways that you've heard about describing typefaces, hit the like button to let me know that you're getting some value. Instagram also comes with its own formatting. You just need to tap on the A with the little glitter stars next to it, and then that gives it the formatting. So just click on that. But I don't think some of them help any of the letter forms in any particular way. The script gets a very soft glow around it. It just gets a very soft glow. It doesn't really help with the legibility. It doesn't really add anything to it. It's fine. For the bold sans slant, this gets 2 additional layers of colors acting as a drop shadow. So this is white with gray and black. And then when you tap it again, it shows black with gray and white. And that's totally fine. It's not my personal vibe or cup of tea, but it's fine. You know, it's great. It's okay. I would avoid any of the formatting to any of these fonts that add negative space between each line, especially if the background is the same as the color of the letter forms. This happens in the typewriter where you see the line that happens behind it. You see this like little gap of negative space between each line of white space of the white bar as the background. You see a line that's almost the exact same width of the vertical strokes, and that's not good. Another font here that I think is horribly formatted with a fill is the light serif with the slant. The letter forms are automatically changed to an uppercase construction where the spacing between the letters get larger, for one, and the top left highlight, there's a little line that forms around the box. There's like a top left highlight that is a solid line. This is thicker than the actual width of the letter forms themselves. And I would stay away from this format if you have more than one line of text, because there's also the negative space between each line of color, making the letters seem so distant from each other, and it just doesn't look that great to me. And it looks fine if you're just a single line or if it's a single word, those are great. But anytime you bring a display into multi-lines of text, it just makes it a little bit more difficult to maintain that idea of professionalism. Another weird one is the irregular sans, and the formatting seems to match its design with a grunge type brush filling behind the letter forms. And I think this is so weird because this brush has a lot of texture in it. It doesn't match with the style of the letter forms at all. It goes right through, it cuts right through these letter forms, and if this was sitting on a black background, it would just 100%. So it's just a little strange. So those are some of the ones that I just am not into. I don't recommend. They just don't look great unless you're trying to make it look a certain way. Those are just ones that I tend to avoid. My favorite fills are the ones that merge each line together into a single form so that the text stays completely contained within, bringing the focus onto the type, and It's the kind of formatting that you would hope to have, especially if you have a photo or image that is particularly busy. You can use this in the bold sans and both of the uppercase sans, as well as a regular weight serif. With the bold sans, the first one, there is a slight rounding on the corners of the shape. Also on the narrow uppercase sans. So those are the different ones. With the first uppercase sans, it is slightly translucent, so it's not a solid white. Once we go to the other uppercase sans, there is more rounded edges for each individual line that just create a bubble around each line, so it kind of creates this weird like ice cream sandwich kind of look. The regular weight serif is very clean. It has square corners and is an example of where less formatting can be more effective, because this is just creating a field of color, just surrounds the whole text and just makes it very legible. So that's the formatting. For using and pairing fonts, as some of the formatting Instagram uses tends to make it more difficult to read, I would use them sparingly if you're going to use them at all. Try to make sure that there is enough room in your image so your letter forms can be read legibly. If you have a busy background, this is where your formatting will be super useful. Think about what the main focus of your post is and make this the most eye-catching with weight or formatting. And you can use a simple typeface for supporting information like the serif or the bold sans or either of the uppercase sans. Some of my favorite posts are simple and only need a single format to get an idea across. I also like to use the brush techniques to create my own kinds of shapes on top of the backgrounds, so just have fun with it, but make sure you prioritize how legible your letters are. We've gone through how to write your message, describe all the fonts and formatting that Instagram currently offers, as well as how to use them in your stories and your posts to look more professional. If you've received any value, let me know by liking this video. If I missed anything, drop it in the comments and let me know below. Make something in Instagram and tag me on Skyblue Jenny to show me some of your new type skills. If you'd like to stay updated on any feature videos on fonts and typography, general graphic design, or productivity, subscribe to my channel if you'd like to learn more. And that's it for me today. Thank you so much for being a part of my channel, and have a wonderful time designing and working on your next message on Instagram. I will see you later.